Hello everyone, this video is addressed to Semester 4 students as part of Introduction to Linguistics course. The session of today is devoted to introducing semantics. As you know, this course is just introductory, so I'm going through just some basic notions in semantics. First, we are going to define what semantics is and what is meant by meaning in semantics. Then we are going to have a look at the main semantic features. Then we'll go through some semantic rules, and then we'll end up with exploring key concepts with regard to semantic relations. Now, semantics is generally defined as the study of meaning in a language, meaning of not only single lexical items or words, but also phrases and sentences, or even larger units of discourse actually, such as texts and narratives. In semantic analysis, there is always an attempt to focus on what words conventionally mean rather than what an individual speaker wants them to mean on a particular occasion. This means that semantics is concerned more with the literal and objective meaning of words and sentences rather than with the individual or subjective use of language. Generally, linguists specialized in semantics, called semanticists or semanticians, study the way words and sentences acquire meaning and the process of assigning certain specific interpretations, that is to say meanings, to words in general. Also, parts of semantics is concerned with the development of meaning throughout the years, which is called historical semantics. Since the central issue of semantics is meaning, then we need first to explore the notion of meaning itself. Giorgio distinguishes between two types of meaning, conceptual and associative meanings. Conceptual meaning, called also denotative or literal meaning, refers to the literal or core sense of a word. It covers the literal dictionary definition of words. So basically, it's the literal meaning that we find in dictionaries. For example, the word cat, conceptually, it refers to a domestic animal with soft fur and short snout. So here we have certain images or concepts that reflect the animal cat. Or needle, for example, it's a thin, sharp, steel object or instrument. So this is the concept or the image or the literal meaning that we find in dictionaries of the word needle. However, different people might have different associations and connotations attached to the word, like needle, for example. It might be associated, let's say, with pain, let's say illness, blood, drugs for addicted people, thread, or something hard to find, and so on. So these associations may differ from one person to another based on our cultural backgrounds and experiences and perceptions of things in general. And this is what is meant by associative meaning. So associative meaning refers to the associations or emotive attitude connected to a word depending on how a word has been used by the speaker. So it refers to the non-literal or implied meaning of words. And these associations can be negative, positive, or neutral. For example, the word pig here, it can conceptually refer to an animal with short tail and legs and, let's say, bristly skin and long flattened snout. So this is the concept that we have, or the literal meaning that we find in dictionary that defines the word pig or the animal pig. Now, it can also have associative meanings, called also connotative meanings, which can refer to an unpleasant and pleasant person who is greedy or dirty. It can refer also to obesity or fatness or disorder, etc. And of course, these associations depend here, as I said, on our experiences and cultural backgrounds. The same thing, for example, in all languages like French, for example, the color rouge, it refers or it denotes conceptually to a color. Okay, but in terms of associative meanings, it can refer to prohibition. For example, we say la zone rouge, or it can refer to anger, or it can be associated with timidity. For example, we say il est devenu tout rouge, okay, or blood, and so on. So associative meaning is somehow, let's say, related to the concept of or notion of reference, which we will see in pragmatics in this session. So semantics is more concerned with conceptual, literal, or denotative meaning that is found literally in dictionaries. In this regard, a linguist called William Frawley defines semantics as the study of literal, decontextualized grammatical meaning. That is to say, semantics is concerned more with the conceptual meaning of words. It does not deal with what speakers imply or intend to suggest with certain expressions in a specific context, but it focuses more on the literal meaning of utterances according to their vocabulary and grammar. Now, one way in which, let's say, the basic conceptual meaning might be helpful would be as a means of accounting for the incorrectness or oddness we experience when we read a sentence, such as the following. The hamburger ate the boy. So we would first here remark that the oddness of this sentence does not derive from its syntactic structure. According to the basic syntactic rules for forming English sentences, we have a well-formed structure, a well-formed sentence here. We have a noun phrase, a verb, and another noun phrase. So we have here a subject and a verb and an object, which is syntactically correct in English, but still the meaning is odd. And one acceptable version or meaningful version would be, for example, the boy ate the hamburger. Then we need to identify where the problem is. In this case, the verb ate necessitates a noun or a subject that must be an entity that is capable of doing the action of eating. And this is called this is what is meant by semantic feature. So it needs a feature that is animate, that is to say, a living creature, which can do the action of eating, which is necessary for the sentence to make sense and be meaningful. Another example could be the table kicked the ball. So same here, syntactically it's correct in terms of word order, but semantically it's wrong and odd, because the verb kick necessitates here an animate or human feature. The way we semantically express this is by putting square brackets and then we put minus or plus before a certain feature. So here the table is not an animate, which is required in this sentence. So we put minus animate because it's not an animate, as I said, that is basically required for in this sentence to be meaningfully acceptable. The action doer of the verb kick here must be an animate. For example, you could say the boy kicked the ball, or the sportsman, kicked the ball, and so on. Or it could be an animal, okay, horse kicked the ball, and so on. Semantic features can be defined then as the basic elements involved in differentiating meaning of each word in a language. Differentiating each word in a language, the meaning of each word in a language from every other word. So here, if we have the following words in English, like say table, horse, boy, man, girl, woman, and you want to provide distinguishing features of meaning for these words, we would have, for example, the following features: animate, human, female, adult. So if we say, for example, table, is it an animate? No, then we put minus. Is it a human? No, then we put minus. It's not obviously a female because it's not an animate, nor is it human, then it's minus, and then it's not adult, minus. But if we go to horse, is it an animate, that is to say a living creature? Yes, then we put plus. Is it human? No, minus. Then is it female? No, then we put minus. Is it adult? Yes, we put plus because the baby of the horse is called foal or pony. And so on and so forth. For example, let's say the man, for example, is animate, then plus human, plus feature of female, no, then minus, then it's adult, then we put minus. Semantic feature constitutes a component of a word's intention, which is the inherent sense or concept evoked. We can characterize, as we can see here, the feature that is crucially required in a noun in order for it to appear as the subject of a particular verb, supplementing the syntactic analysis with the semantic feature. For example, we have here the syntactic structure. The is delivering presentation. So here semantically we need a feature which is capable or which reflects an entity which is capable of delivering a presentation here. So the feature would be a human. Then we need plus a human feature, a noun. Okay, syntactically it should be a noun phrase in the feature, semantically in the feature of a human, for example, or representing the feature of a human. Okay, so here it could be, for example, the student is delivering presentation, the teacher, the doctor, the journalist is delivering presentation. But if we choose a subject or a noun which is non-human, like say table, a dog, a horse, or a window, the sentence would be semantically odd or wrong. Now let's stop at an exercise and try to put minus or plus in the right column. Try to pause the video and do it yourself, and the correction will be provided at the end of this video. Now let's continue. The approach of using certain semantic features like here animate, human, etc., animal, machine, pet, and so on, to analyze the conceptual components of word meaning is not free from problems or doubts. For many words in a language, it may not be easy to come up with a list of features that represent meaning. For example, if you want to think about features that would represent certain abstract nouns, let's say for example love or advice, for example, it may not be easy to do that, or it may not be even successful. The problem seems to be that this approach of features views words in a language as kind of containers, that is to say, it consists of components for meaning. There is clearly more to the meaning than just words with certain basic types of features. That is to say, or that is why linguistics, let's say, particularly semanticists, investigate the rules that words fulfill or perform within a situation described by an utterance or sentence. This leads us to look at the semantic rules. So semantic rules refer to the underlying relationships that a constituent has with the main verb in a clause, known also as semantic cases or semantic themes. So they describe here the way in which words are used and the functions they perform in a sentence. And you have them in your textbook, so they have roles such as agent, theme, instrument, experiencer, and so on. Now let's explore these roles one by one. The first pair of roles is agent and theme. So agent refers to an entity, it could be a person or thing, that performs an action. Okay? It means the action of the verb of the sentence given. It's the action, the word, what is called al-fa'il in Arabic. For example, here we have DRIOUCH kicked the ball. So DRIOUCH is the one who did the action of kicking the ball, so it's the agent. Second example, a car ran over the ball. So a car, it's the entity which performed the action of running over the ball. So it's in the role, semantically in the role of agent. A theme, also called patient, is an entity that is involved and affected by the action of the verb. In the examples given above, the ball is the theme because it's the entity which is affected by the action of kicking or running over the ball. Okay? So themes here can also refer to an entity which is being described. For example, we have here, the girl is beautiful. Even if the girl is the subject, and typically subjects are agents, in such cases where there is a description of something or someone, even if the subject, even if it's the subject of the sentence, it's semantically a theme. Let's take another example. My friend is intelligent. So your friend does not perform any action. It's just being described. Hence, it's in the role of a theme semantically. A theme is typically non-human, but it can also be human, as in the following example. The dog chased the boy. So here, the dog is the agent because it's the one, the entity which performs the action, and it's chasing what? The boy. The boy is the theme upon which the action is done. Sometimes the same physical entity can appear in two different semantic roles in a sentence. For example, here, the boy cut himself. See here, both the boy and himself refer to the same entity, and here and this same entity have two different semantic roles in the same sentence. So we have the boy, which is agent, and himself is the theme. More examples could be, for example, nowadays doctors are fighting coronavirus, so doctors are the agent while coronavirus is the theme. Or teachers make online courses, for example, teachers here are the agent, they are the ones who perform the action, while courses are the theme of the sentence. Let's go now to the next pair of roles. We have instrument versus experiencer. Very easy. Instrument, it means the let's say the means by which an action is performed or comes out. As you can see, for let's say it's like it's when an agent or an action doer uses something in order to perform the action. So it's the means that is used by the agent in order to do or to perform an action. For example, as you can see here, she cleaned the wand with an antiseptic wipe. So here she did the action of cleaning with what? Or using what? Using antiseptic wipe. So antiseptic wipe here is the instrument. Another example is the boy cut the rope with an old razor. An old razor here is the instrument that is being used by the boy in order to do the act of cutting, for example. Now the experiencer refers to an entity or person who does not perform the action, but he has a feeling or perception of it. In other words, when a noun phrase is used to designate or show an entity or a person who experiences a sort of feeling or perception or state in a sentence, here it fills the semantic role of an experiencer. For example, if we see or know and enjoy something, we are not really performing an action, hence we are not agents, we are in the role of an experiencer. Take the following examples. The boy feels sad. Here the boy does not do any action, but he just experiences the feeling of sadness, then he is an experiencer. Or in the second example, the question, did you hear that noise? The experiencer here is you, and the theme is that noise. Or third given example, here my kids enjoyed the cartoon. Here the kids did not perform an action or any action actually, but they experienced the feeling, so they are in the semantic role of an experiencer. More roles are location, source, and goal. Locative, which comes from location, it basically, it's an easy one. It refers to where an entity is located, that is to say the place of an entity. For example, my teacher is in the classroom. So here in the classroom refers to a place, to a location, then it's considered as locative. Or your books are on the table is the locative here. Source, it designates where an entity moves from. So it's the source of the action. So here we have a visitor from Mexico. Here Mexico is source. Or I received a letter from the bank. The bank here is the source. As opposed to the goal, it shows where an entity moves to. So the source where it moves from, but the goal where it moves to. For example, here I went to Terudan. Terudan here is the goal. It's a destination in this example. Or I returned the book to the library. To the library here is the goal. More examples would be the following. My uncle drove from Ait Melul to Agadir. So Ait Melul is the source, and the place where it moves to here, or he moves to, is Agadir. So Agadir is in the semantic role of goal. Or we moved from block C to block E, as we have in our compass. For example, block C in this sentence is the source and block E is the goal. Now, as a summary of the semantic roles covered so far, we have agent, which refers to who did the action, the theme, to whom, the instrument with what, experiencer, who experienced that, okay, and locative, where, source, from where, and the goal is to where. Other semantic rules are actually exist, which are not mentioned in the course book we are using, such as beneficiary, or called also beneficative or recipient, yes, and also we have temporal and so on. Now let's stop with this exercise. Try to identify the rules of each of the underlined expressions in the following sentences. Make a pause to the video again and try to identify the rules, as is the case with the first provided example or exercise before. The answers of this exercise will also be provided later at the end of this video. Now let's go to lexical relations or semantic lexical relations. In semantics, words can not only be treated as, let's say, containers of meaning, that is, they consist of a number of features or properties, and as performing certain, let's say, roles that we have just seen in certain situations or events. They can also have relationships with others. That is to say, sometimes we can explain a certain word or the meaning of certain words through, examining the relationships with other words. For example, if I want to explain the word purchase, I can use its synonym and it would say it means to buy, for example, or antonym, it means it's the opposite of to sell, for example, and so on. So we explain certain words in their relation or through the relation with other words, and this is called semantic lexical relations. And we have a list of them here. We are going to see now, okay? We are going to cover some of the lexical semantics, which are synonyms, antonyms, hyponyms, prototypes, homophones, homonymy, and then polysemy. Now let's start with the first one, which is synonyms. Synonyms, are referred to words which have the same meaning. So we have here answer, it's the same as reply, or freedom is liberty, or nearly is the synonym of almost. Synonyms can often not always be replaced or substituted for each other in sentences. For example, as we have here, what was her answer? We can say, what was her reply? So her answer here and reply can be used alternately as in this example. However, bear in mind that this idea of sameness of meaning in synonyms is not necessarily total sameness. There are many situations, for example, in a word in which a word can be used appropriately while its synonym can't. Otherwise, that synonym might sound semantically odd or incorrect. Take the example of reply versus answer itself. For example, in the following example, we could say, Andy had only one answer correct on the test, which is correct, but we cannot replace here answer with reply. We cannot say Andy had only one reply correct on the test. It's semantically incorrect and odd. The word here is not appropriate, the word of reply, as I said. Other examples in this regard could be, for example, home and house, which both refer to the physical building where we live in. However, home can also refer to a family atmosphere or any place we think we belong to. For example, we could say Agadir is and will always be home to me, but we cannot replace here home with house. We cannot say Agadir is and will always be house to me. It's semantically odd. Now let's go to antonyms. Antonyms are words which have opposite meaning. For example, true is the opposite or the antonym of false. Male and female are antonyms, and also big and small. Antonyms are usually divided into two types, gradable and non-gradable. If you can see, for example, now, gradable antonyms such as big, small, hot, cold, say fast, slow, can be used in comparative constructions. For example, you see, today is hotter than yesterday, or a pony is smaller than a horse. And more than that, the negative the negative of one member of a gradable pair does not necessarily imply the other. For example, if you say my car isn't old, it means the negative is not plus the word my car is not old in this sentence. It does not necessarily mean that my car is new. Or if we say, for example, the weather is not cold today, it does not necessarily mean that it's hot. It It could be cool or warm and so on. So they are relative in their sense. As opposed to non-gradable antonyms called also complementary pairs, the negative of one member of non-gradable pair directly implies the other member. For example, if we say my grandma is not live, it directly means that she's dead. Also, they are not normally used, it means non-gradable antonyms in comparative constructions. For example, we cannot say that my grandma is dead or more dead than yours. Or I cannot say I'm more single than you are, for example. Another type of antonyms is called reversives. Why the use of this negative test, that is to say, the form of not plus a word to refer to the antonym of a certain word, is used to identify non-gradable, for example, antonyms in a language. It's not always semantically acceptable. For example, if we say the word dress, dress here, if we say not dress, it's not necessarily the opposite of dress, or which is to undress. So here to undress, it means the reverse action of the word dress, but it does not necessarily mean not to dress something. Okay, and that's what is called reversives. It means reversives here, it refers to words which denote motion or change in opposite direction, like in the following example: enter and exit. For example, if we say I didn't enter the house, it doesn't mean that I exited the house, for example. Or pack and pack, or tie and tie. For example, untie does not mean not to tie, but it's the reverse action of tie. So another example, for example, could be to ascend, that is to say, to go up or to climb. Saying or using the negative form not to ascend does not mean the opposite, which is to descend. So this kind of antonyms are called the reversives. Now let's go to the next one, which is hyponym, which is a word whose meaning is included within the meaning of another word. So for example, here we have animal, which is, and then we have part of the animal is dog. So dog here is the hyponym, let's say kind of animal. So animal is like an umbrella term, and such umbrella terms are called hypernym or subordinate. So part of animal is dog. Yes, so dogs here is a hyponym of animal, or as in the second example, apple is hyponym of animal. So we have animal which is more fruit. So we have here fruit which is more general, and type of it is apple. So apple is hyponym of fruit. Or rose is a hyponym of flower. Flower is more general and more comprehensive. For other examples could be, for example, color, and then we have red or blue or green. So these are hyponyms or co-hyponyms of the word color. I hope it's clear. Now another one is prototypes. As stated in your textbooks, while words such as canary, dove, flamingo, duck, parrot, robin are all equally, let's say, hyponyms, or what is called co-hyponyms of the subordinate bird, they are not always considered to be equally good examples of the category bird. Okay, or what is called the hypernym or subordinate bird. Based on some experiments done by some researchers, I read somewhere, they asked certain people called participants or subjects to classify the kinds of birds according to their birdness, that is to say, the quality or the degree or typicality of the category bird. Not surprisingly, creatures like penguin are not, let's say, raised by these participants, or rarely raised, in comparison, for example, with parrots and robins, which were raised so frequently. So parrots and robins represents more birds, or the category bird here, than penguin to these people or these participants. This means that parrots and robins are prototypes, that is to say, examples or characteristic instance, or let's say standard mental representations. These are all explained in the notion of prototypes of the word bird. So the idea of characteristic instance of a category is known as prototype. Then the concept of prototype helps, as we have here in the slide, to explain the meaning of certain words like bird, not in terms of its component features. For example, the bird has feathers and it has wings and so on, but in terms of their resemblance to the clearest examples. For example, here we have clothes, okay, or in terms of clothing, we would think of, let's say, shirts before trainers, for example. Or when we speak about, let's say, furniture, tables would come to our minds before benches, for example. Or in terms of vegetables, for example, we would recognize and raise potatoes and carrots before garlic or lemons. So prototypes provide a kind of exemplars or standard image of a category which is immediately conjured up in our mind when we hear a certain word. Of course, this kind of general pattern or prototyping, that is the categorization process involved in prototypes, is different from one person or community to another based on our experiences and our perceptions of things in general. And this sometimes can lead to differences or variations in our interpretations of certain words. For example, some people would consider words like avocado or tomato as fruit, while others would see them as vegetables. So it depends on our perceptions of the words given. The next lexical relation that we are going to see now is homophones. Homophones basically refer to words with identical pronunciation but different spelling meanings. That is to say, they are written differently and they have different meanings, but they sound similarly. For example, we have the word meat, okay, which refers to the flesh of an animal, and the verb to meet, it means to have a meeting with someone. So we have meet. These sound differently, but they are written these sound similarly, but they are written differently and they have different meanings. The same for words like flower, and to. The first to refers to the preposition to words, and the second to refers to the connector. Also, okay, it means also, and then the last one is the number 2. I hope it's clear now with homophones. Now let's go to homonyms. Homonyms are words that are spelled and pronounced similarly, that is to say alike, but they have different unrelated meanings. As you can see in the following examples, bank, it can refer to the side of the river, or it can refer to the financial institution, bank where we deposit our money and so on. Or the word bat, for example, it refers to the flying creature, that is to say a kind of bird that typically appears at night, or it can refer to a stick we use in certain sports, like in baseball, for example. Or race, for example, it refers to a context of speed, like a competition, like we say car race, or it can refer to an ethnic group. These are what we call homonyms, that is to say words that are written in the same way, but they have different meanings, and these meanings are unrelated. Now let's go to the next one, which is polysemy. Polysemy, it refers to a form, it means a word that has multiple meanings that are all related. So the meanings that we have in a certain word, which is polysemous, are related. For example, take the word head, for example, it's the top part of our body, or it refers to the froth on the top of a cup of tea, actually, or it can refer to a person who is at the top position of a department or a company. And for example, we see the head of the department, like the chef, for example. So if you see here, this word head has different meanings, multiple of meanings, and these meanings are related. Or for example, the word crane, for example, it refers to a type of bird with a long neck, or a construction machine which is tall and looks like as if it has, let's say, a long neck, or as a verb it's used to refer to stretch out your neck, for example. So here some people can be confused between homonyms and polysemy, for example. If we are not sure whether different uses of a single word are examples of homonymy or polysemy, we can check a dictionary, for example. Okay, so if the word has a lot of meanings, means multiple meanings, it's polysemous, then we will have a single entry, then a number list of different meanings of that word is provided. But if a word is treated as a homonymy, for example, as an example of homonymy, it means homonym, they will be typically have two separate words or entries, and then each definition is provided separately. For example, if you check your dictionaries, you go to word bank and the bat and the race, you will see how they are treated as homonyms. And for example, head or foot or get or crane, they are treated as polysemy. Another example or another way of differentiating between polysemous words and homonyms, is in terms of meaning. Polysemy, as I said, the meaning of polysemous words are related. Like in head, all of them refer to the top of something. But with the words like homonyms, homonyms, their meanings are related. Like the word bank, it refers to the side of the river, and then it refers to an institution which is financial. Then these two meanings are completely unrelated. The last lexical relation dealt with is metonymy, which is a figure of speech that replaces the name of a thing with the name of something else that is associated to. For example, we say he drank the whole bottle, for example. The bottle here, it stands for, it's a metonymy of the liquid that is inside the bottle. So we cannot actually drink bottles as objects. That's absurd, literally. But here, the word bottle is used as a metonymy to refer to the liquids which is inside of it. Okay. Another example is the pen is mightier than the word here is. This is a famous saying, and the word here pen, it refers or it stands for written word. It means books or whatever. And sword, it stands for here military aggression. So it's a metonymy sign of military aggression. Other examples could be, for example, the White House announces something. Normally a building cannot announce anything, but here it's used as a metonymy for the President of US, for example. Or let's say metonymy is used as a figure of speech and a literary device, and it's used a lot in literary works. For example, in Shakespeare, for example, in one of his plays called Julius Caesar, in Act 1, I quote here, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. So here ears is used to say that the speaker wants people to pay attention to him. So it's used as a metonymy because the word ears replaces the concept of paying attention here. I hope it's clear. Now the last, erased concept in the chapter of the book, in the chapter of semantics on the course book we are using, is collocations, which refers to the words that go together. So collocations refer to meaningful word combinations. If we have, for example, dogs bark, for example, normally the sound of dogs that dogs make is always associated or referred to as barking. So when we hear the word dogs and we want to refer to their sound, we use the word bark, for example. So they always go together. Or we ask questions, for example. And for example, in the word fast food, we cannot see here, for example, quick food, even if it's its synonym, but we can say quick meal, and then again we cannot say fast meal. So collocations in general are words that go together. I think it's enough for you today. The course is just introductory, as I said, and I hope things were clearly explained. And thank you very much. And before I leave, I am going to provide, as promised, the correction of the two exercises given before. Here is the correction of the first exercise, and here is the correction of the second. Have a good day and stay safe.